Welcome to the IT Business Podcast, the go-to show for IT professionals and managed service providers who want to run their business better, smarter, and faster. Each week, Uncle Marv brings you real-world insights, proven strategies, and stories from industry experts, vendors, and fellow MSPs, all designed to help you stay ahead of the curve and thrive in today's tech landscape. So plug in, power up, and let's dive into another episode of the IT Business Podcast with your host, Uncle Marv.
Hello, friends. That's right. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast. This is the weekly live show, 8 p.m. Wednesday nights. And tonight, I think it's going to be an interesting show. We are going to talk about something that could radically change how you deliver services and scale your MSP. For those of us that are small, boutique, or even just simply growing, you could be at 2 and 3 million growing and still being asked to do more than ever before. Keep clients secure 24/7, support hybrid work. You got to wrangle cloud sprawl, and you're supposed to do all of that while margins get tighter and the talent pool gets thinner. So that is going to be a topic tonight. MSP as a service. My good friend Juan Fernandez. God, I don't know why I screwed that up. Juan Fernandez will be coming on to talk about what he just launched yesterday, and it should be a good conversation. But before we do that, I need to do one quick, it's not a mea culpa, but normally when I come back from conferences, I have a little swag show, and I have not yet been able to do that from the 3 conferences that I went to over the 4 weeks. So I do want to at least make one bit of acknowledgement. So I always used to say that food is not swag. And I used to comment that if you're bringing, mints and stuff like that, that's not really swag. That's stuff you can eat and it'll be gone pretty quickly. But I should go back and remember that CyberQP kind of threw that away because they had this hot sauce that they had been given away. And I kind of poo-pooed that, but yet they would say that that was always what they ran out of, what people wanted to get. And so they would just literally stock up on the CyberQP hot sauce. And then, of course, this came along and they didn't put their name on it, but they did put on where it says, no tickets, no worries. We know that's our good friends over at Thread. They came out with their own hot sauce. And so I was walking around at a recent show and I came across a bag of chips from MSP Process. And this is one of their bags and they put their sticker on it. And I just looked at that and said, come on now. Chips can't be swag. But then they started to tell me the story that at the very last minute or something, they went and got these chips. And these are supposedly some very coveted chips from where they are from. These chips are from a company called Old Dutch Foods. They are in Calgary, Heartland, and Winnipeg, up in the Great White North of Canada. There's also another bag called ketchup chips. And I kind of said, all right, let me take a look at that. And I did my research and they're right. These things are coveted. So one of the things that I've always said about swag is that it should be something that people want, people will use, that's not going to be thrown away. Usually it's shirts that we would wear in public. It's, socks now that we would wear. It's pens that we actually will use because they write well and they stand up to the test of time. So we now have to add the MSP Process chips from Old Dutch. And I don't know if this is the name, all dressed assassinate, and ketchup. So while I'm not going to evaluate any other swag today, I wanted to do a special shout out to MSP Process for their chips. So there you have it. I also, before we get to our guest, I want to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to do a Florida man story. I'm not going to do anything here, but let me get my, so many screens up. I can't see my thingamabobby story that I want to read. Which one is it? All right, here we go. I want to play a video. And I'm going to play the video in silent mode. So if you're listening to this after the fact on the podcast, don't worry. I'm going to give you, excuse me, a little bit of a blow-by-blow. And I don't want to be sued by these folks, which is why the video is going to come up silent, but I will play it. I can't. That's not the silent version. So let me do this. Let me turn the volume down. There we go. So I watched Shark Tank when it first came out, oh, so many years ago. And at first I liked it. So Johnny's credibility did not come from a spreadsheet. It came from a grove owner whose only surviving trees were the ones protected by his tree TP. So in our MSPs, you know, that might be the client whose data we recovered from a ransomware event, might be the one that we kept online during a hurricane, or the one who didn't lose a single day of productivity because we designed their environment properly. So my question to you is, do you have those stories? Do you capture them? Do you tell them and use them to help clients understand the real value of what you do? Johnny is not an MSP. He's out in the groves dealing with frost, water, and farmers instead of firewalls, backups, and M365. But the principles are the same. Know who you serve, price with intention, build enough margin to scale, and never lose sight of the impact you're creating. So that is the story I wanted to share and leave you with. When we come back, we will get into MSP as a service with our good friend, Juan Fernandez.
Is your business truly protected from cyber threats? ThreatLocker is the gold standard. Zero trust endpoint protection, trusted by IT professionals everywhere. ThreatLocker blocks everything that is not explicitly trusted, denying all applications and scripts from running unless explicitly allowed, and also includes ransomware. Easy to deploy, easy to manage, and backed by a 24/7 support team that is lightning fast with response times around 60 seconds. Stop cyber attacks before they start and sleep easier at night. Lock down your endpoints and say goodbye to ransomware. Click on the ThreatLocker link in the show notes and start your free 30-day trial today. Be sure to also check out our other amazing sponsors, NetAlley, whose handheld network test and analysis tools give IT pros fast, easy visibility into wired and Wi-Fi networks so they can quickly find and fix problems. OneStream, a unified communication and integration platform that centralizes voice, messaging, and contact center tools for MSPs with deep CRM and PSA integrations and automation. And TrueGrid, your secure remote access platform designed to simplify delivering remote workspaces without VPNs or exposed firewalls. For more details on these partners, check out their links in the show notes.
All right. We are joined by my good friend Juan Fernandez, who made the big announcement yesterday Summit Holdings started MSP as a service, and this is a labor-first, white-labeled operating framework that lets MSPs instantly bolt on scalable service delivery capacity. Juan, welcome, my friend.
Marv, it's awesome to be here, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. So I've got two questions to start.
Yeah.
Well, first, let me say happy belated birthday.
Oh, see, you caught on. Thank God you didn't ask how old I am, but this absolutely, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So the first question is, was it intentional for you to actually make this announcement on your birthday?
Yes and no, right? Like it actually, the way it worked out, we had a plan on announcing a little sooner, but as it pushed past that moment, I said, you know what? I always give something back to the channel. Usually I do like March birthdays where we get together in an event and I invite a bunch of folks, take them all out. And, you know, I usually do that at CCF. And I said, this year I can't do that. Like, and so I said, you know what? This is what I'm giving back to the channel. I'm going to give them the gift that I've spent time building, and I was really pumped to do it. So yeah, it kind of was and it kind of wasn't, but as the Lord might have it, it happened on that date, and I was excited to be able to do it then.
Okay. So my second question is going to kind of lead us down a path here. So let me ask, what is the most common thing that you've been asked that you're kind of, I don't want to say tired of answering, but I want to scratch that off my list here?
How is this different from what's out there? I you know, it's kind of one of these things where, you know, one of my favorite comments of what I've asked people after we've done interviews, I said, what did you think about this when you saw it? And as they got to learn a little bit about it, they related it to this one moment. And they said, you know about 3i Atlas? And I was like, sure. They said, you know, it came out of nowhere. And yet all of a sudden it has this perfect trajectory through our satellite system on this amazing route and at a speed that's never been seen before. And if I have to think about any one thing, this is what I think about this, is that it's almost, it was no one saw it. Everyone assumed it was going, you were doing something else. And yet it's something that we didn't know was possible to even move like that. And now we see this is really interesting. So that question about that I keep getting asked, how is this any different? It's really different. It's actually not just knock, sock, and service desk. It's an actual operating model, right? So when you think about others that offer services that may sound the same, not a lot of them are US based. Not a lot of them are ITIL aligned. Not a lot of them are CIS, you know, governed in the way we present it. Not a lot of them are destined for your success. A lot of them are peeling the margin out and adding it back in. We are tooling products and services and support all together. And the hardest decision MSPs have to make is the margin. Like, what do I want to make? So when we do co-selling, because we also co-sell, so oftentimes my logo gets changed when there's opportunities where MSPs are like, Juan, can you help me? And we go help them, right? We get in there and we get dirty and we win together, right? We work with our vendors to build together. We're building things that other vendors are just operating infrastructure. We're actually building success for MSPs. And that, to me, is very different. It's being said in a certain way that we have a connotation to understand, but it's not the same. And so,
so let me ask this question then, since I can't ask that. If an MSP, if an MSP is afraid to plug into an as-a-service model, because either they worry about losing control, because obviously if we're talking about small MSPs, solo techs, they're like, well, am I just, you know, handing over my business to somebody else? Larger businesses, you know, might look at this as a way to, you know, add on this hands-on service or whatever. But what does that tell you about, you know, our processes and leadership in terms of somebody that's afraid to give control because we don't want to lose the business, or somebody that's too big and just looking for, extra hands?
I don't know that it signifies anything other than what I appreciate about where we're at, right? We've worked really hard to get where we're at. And you should be respectful of your relationship with your customer. One of the things that actually makes me a little upset is where I see MSPs willing to work so hard to get a customer, and I mean hard, spend time and money and effort on building a relationship and then sell it off. I'm like, what are you doing? Why would you do something like that? Like, it kind of shocks me. And I'm like, there's a different way of doing things. And so I think from a leadership perspective, I appreciate those that are protective over their customer base. That's what this has been built on, is reputation and relationships, right? Like, we didn't grow originally because we had a huge sales team. We grew because we had reference points of doing a good job. And so for me, I take that seriously. This is where the word elastic service provider came from when I designed it, was that we were able to pivot to the moments where you find your value to be the highest. And we meet you at that moment to say, hey, look, if you got a stack in a relationship with a vendor, then we'll just manage that for you. If you got a specific point where you want an exit point on a ticket to be escalated to you because you want to handle that, that's where we will do that. And that's because we're ITIL based. We have framework internally that can manage to those moments. It's not like this is just chaos city back here. Like, we run this like an enterprise, so we can manage to that level of opportunity. And so I don't disregard their cautiousness, because we've been burned so many times, Marv. I mean, the last thing I need to do is lose a relationship with a customer because I got bad support, right? That sucks, dude. And trust me, if you were ever a vendor of mine when I was an MSP, I was the worst because I had a very high delivery ratio in terms of customer success. I was very fierce about that. And I'm like that now. Yeah. And so our SLAs are extremely high. They deliver, and we pay attention to that so that those folks can feel comfortable that they have a stable platform to stand on.
Now, what you're offering with this as a service, is this something that somebody comes in and becomes a part of? Do we have to change our delivery service to match what you're offering? Tell me how that works.
This is where the explanation of the elastic service provider comes from, right? We can do all the things, right? We can manage your stack. We can operate your stack. We can, patch your stack. We can do all the things. It just depends on what you want, right? If you already have an existing provider for an RMM and a PSA, and you got your NOC tools, and you got your SOC aligned and all the tools, your security stack, then we can manage those. Or you can say, hey, what does one look like, right? And we have pre-bundled best practices, all CIS aligned, so that when you take it to your customer, it's already ready to go, right? Like I said, all you pick is your margin. So it just depends on the type of customer and where you're at. If you got contracts, by all means, you can keep your contracts. You can look at ours and see, we're decreasing the opportunity. So if you're like, hey, I really have always wanted to move to this security vendor, all right, well, we'll just migrate all these over to that security vendor. It doesn't even, to us, it's whatever you need to do the thing that you want to do the best, right? Make the best decision to deploy the right technology. You get to choose. So we don't dictate that.
Okay. So for somebody like me, boutique MSP, is this something where I could just simply add on, some white labeled operations to, do that scale?
Yeah, if you decided to do business with us, you would have a conversation and we would talk you through what it is you have. And we would talk around, how you want it to look and how you operate today. And then we would tell you, okay, hey, we got 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, 24/7. What do you normally offer? Here's what it costs. What do you charge for it? And show you where your margin opportunity is so that you could step back and start focusing on growing the business versus operating the business. And in there, we would tell you, okay, hey, based on these customer types, look at those and say, hey, you got these pieces, here's other areas that you would want to probably expand on, and like look at QBR programming to go deeper and wider those accounts, stitching on the additional services that now you have capacity to deliver. And the price point is at a way that, generally we see people adding on between 30 and 50% margin, and you're still under market rate. So it still gives you that small guy benefit, but it's technically you're running at an enterprise state, right? So it's actually that economy of scale that gives you the ability to swing that bat. So white label, we call you, we answer is you, we treat the customer like you. We have tier 0 to what we call done, instead of tier 1 to tier 2 or tier 3 to tier 4. The only thing you end up doing is helping us onboard. And then also, if you got to roll a truck, those get escalated back because we don't got feet on the ground for you. But those high touch point opportunities like project services are all things you would still deliver. And again, you got the support of the team on the back so that you can stand on that stable foothold of opportunity back here.
All right. One of the key takeaways that I took from the announcement is that this would be, giving time back to the business. So I was going to ask you, I'm assuming you studied this, knowing you, but is there a measurement of how much, margin, how much owner time we are losing in terms of our operation, staffing, scheduling, blah, blah, blah. Have you done that study?
Yeah. We have, in order to have the conversation with MSPs, we have a couple hundred MSPs that are currently working with us and tens of thousands of customers, right? And so under them that we support. And, when we look at this, this model, we see for people that love it, right? The startup MSP that wants to grab a stack, the 1 to 5 million, that's like, every time I'm doing something, I got to, my team calls in, I end up taking the call, or, the $7 million to $15 million MSP that's like, my offshore resource isn't working. I need something US based. My customers aren't liking this, right? Or, I can't add 2 people every time that I have a new customer come on. And then private equity and these other folks, they're the ones that are like, hey, that's really sexy because we can make a lot of money without adding a lot of headcount, which is usually, some of their thesis. But to the stats, when you look at it, 45% of revenue in an MSP goes to labor. And when you think about that and you start doing the math behind your cost per seat, and this is a calculation that I had been giving away for years when I built my MSP, was, what's your true cost of delivering that service? What's your cost per ticket, cost per hour, and what's your cost per customer? And so when we look at it, we see that there's about 2,080 working hours in a year for an employee. And if they start to use MSP as a service, they ultimately per employee could get back 1,500 hours worth of billable time to be able to deploy to other things. Now, depending on where you're at and what your fully burdened labor rate is, that's a significant amount of money that an MSP business owner can now look at bringing back additional revenues to be able to quantify, right? So now you can start getting more into that 3x multiple of my technician to cost ratio and looking at their technician to profitability ratio, right? And so you're flipping the coin a little bit, and we're excited about it because we do add a significant amount of margin. As far as owner time, it's about 15 to 20 hours per week that MSPs under 5 million get back. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, just in headache time alone, right? It's just like, when we bought the MSPs summit, we bought the folks in their MSP owners group. A lot of people thought we were buying them because I was going to build a roll up. And I said, I'm not. I'm building a bridge. You think I'm hauling wood to build a house? I'm building a bridge. And now,
that was the question I was going to ask you, because you brought up private equity earlier. And I'm like, okay, is this a funnel? Is this a funnel for the MSP owners group? Because you got your hand in there. All right.
So when we did that, I needed everybody to see. So we call them our experience centers. So you can come in and look at what a remodeled house looks like and what they do now, right? I wanted to do this live in front of everyone so that they could see this shift in the short period of time that it takes to go from doing everything on your own with your own people, and now taking those people, moving them off, and now watching them stand up and step out into these new areas of delivering new business and opportunity. And I wanted them to be able to have a conversation with those CEOs to say, hey, how does this feel? Like, what is this like? Like, what are you doing now? Like, and they're just focusing on sales. They're focusing on their customers. Their employees are looking at consultative aspects versus any of the noise now, right? So this was intentional. This is really why I didn't want to announce it so early, because I knew I was going to get a lot of flack and I was going to have to explain everything. And now hopefully it makes sense.
Well, listen, when I saw you down here in Fort Lauderdale, I wasn't going to give you flack. You could have told me.
I know, but I got to leave a little surprise on the table, right? I got,
right.
It's not fun unless we're having fun, right? And I think that there's got to be twists and turns.
Yeah, let me ask this, because one of the things I saw is that I don't know if it's a promise, but you talk about taking a 12-month build out of operations and literally turning that into day one profitability.
Yes.
So what does that look like really?
So let's talk about something. This is something that often doesn't get measured. And I remember I was with some friends and we were doing exchange, and SureWeb was like, hey, can you come in and be a thought leader in our boardrooms? And I said, sure, man, what's going on? And I remember Slater, he's like, hey, we're doing 13 boardrooms. And I was like, bro, I thought you liked me, dog. Come on. Like, what is this? Like, in 13, you're going to speak in 13 boardrooms? And in those boardrooms, I was talking about something very interesting, right? I said, just because a vendor checks a box doesn't mean they put checks in your mailbox. Now, I didn't do that to be disrespectful. I did that to be conscientious of the time that it takes to make money. And when I was an MSP, I wouldn't even have conversations with vendors because the amount of time, my time is money, right? Like, I'm very serious about that. So the first conversation was 1 hour. How much is my time worth? Then I got to book a demo. Now it's this much. Now I got to go do and bring my team in to take another demo so that they can look at it. And now I got to go and implement it, and it's this much. And now I got to go and get this set up and configured with all of my tool stack. And now I got to train everybody up. All of a sudden, I'm 6-8 months down the road of getting this thing to the first moment where I can even sell it to a customer. And then the customer has to pay me. Okay. So this is time to revenue. That's the first coin that gets dropped in the box. The sunk cost of deploying that thing now gets amortized over a period of time until this is paid off. All this sunk cost, you're never going to be at this place I call time to profitability. So when you amortize all that expense and you compress that down, we've already done all that. We did the due diligence. We've done the implementation. You pick the stack. You pick the vendor. We deploy it. You log in, and it's up. You didn't have to do any of that, right? Like, you didn't have to go through contract negotiations. You didn't have to do any of this stuff if you don't want to. So that compresses down to profitability day one, because I've given that gift back to the channel by saying, I'll go do all the hard work for everybody. And you guys just come in here and just grab success and get moving, right? Like, so that's what that's about.
So what if somebody brings in something as part of their stack that's not already in your as a service offering?
Happens.
Because you can't have everything.
It happens all the time, right? So depending on how it's structured, we'll create an SOW for the operation of that tool, and then I'll go work with that vendor to try to figure out how to bring them in. A lot of the vendors that are already in here now are because people needed us to support things. And as more and more of them get activated, then we create different relationships with those vendors to simplify the approach for our partners. But I don't just go create partnerships willy-nilly. Like, I wait for the market to actually say, hey, this is something, or we have the proven stacks that are already pretty configured and built out. So we work all the time with all the vendors to test them out. As a matter of fact, we stick them in our experience center to make sure that we can actually do it. So those poor folks have been through all kinds of things over there.
Okay.
As you know, our buddy, you talked to him. He's like, bro, we shifted everything.
And he shifted a lot. Already over the
Everything.
years.
There's nothing that everything is gone. Everything that
Yeah.
he had there's all gone.
All
So,
right. So how much of this is part of your MSP 5.0 mantra?
so I, everything is part of it, right? When I start to think about this question, and I talk about this in the MSP 5.0 talk that I do as a keynote and as speaking engagement for a lot of folks, I've spent time thinking about this time in this era that we're in, right? We talk about break fix and, manage, the cyber era and the managed era. Like we've been through these different eras, right? And we're in this new era, this emerging era of AI, and we're moving toward this next generation. But the compression of time is now not 10 years. It's now like more like 4. And now it's compressing even tighter, right? So we start to think about the technology that's rolling in. How do we get there? And one of the things that I was worried about, I call myself a resident MSP. I'm just sitting on the porch here, man. I'm watching high rises come up all around these little houses, and they're coming up all around us. But
are you saying get off my lawn?
I didn't say get off my lawn. But I can't say that I mow my lawn either, right? So I will say that this 5-year era, when I start talking about this in 2025, is this moment where the question that I say and I ask is, what do you do when what you do isn't what you do anymore? Because what we're doing today is not going to be what we're doing in 5 years. And my biggest fear here is that we weren't going to make it. And I was concerned for the community. I was concerned for those that can't get to this level in this short period of time. And this is really what pushed my buttons to get out here and help was, I can't just sit here and watch this happen. There's too many great people here. I got to try. And this is the moment where I'm giving all that I can to try to make sure that we can stand on a stable foundation so that we can get to this next generation of AI. So we can start looking and delivering new value equations to our customers, because the noise is not what's going to get us across that bridge. Like this isn't it. So we decided to put this together and bring it out really quickly and help as much as we could. So I talk about it, this next generation era of 5.0 is being a fully, artificial institution, right? Like the only difference is that I'm focusing a lot on the people right now, right? For me, I'm doing whatever I tell everybody, hey, as a leader, be cautious of you bringing in artificial intelligence. You're watching money make decisions in this place right now, and you're watching people get let go by the droves because of it. But these people got you here. And that's the thing that I'm very cautious as a leader, is to try to help get the people to the next level so that they can help us get us there. And I know people will say, oh, well, the ones that got you here won't get you there. And I'm like, yeah, but if you train them, they will. Like we got here because we all decided to get training, right? Like we decided to learn something new, and this is why we're here. But that's my hope, man. This is more of a conscious thing than it is anything else. And, that's why we're working really hard to try to help the folks that we are and build the things that we are.
All right. So I'm not going to go through this rest of these questions that I have for you, but I will give you the opportunity now. I know you've been kind of sitting here waiting, for those tough questions and stuff, but let me ask you, what questions do you have for me or for anybody else in the channel?
I would say this, Marv, what I love is what I always do after anything is, because this moment we stop learning is the moment we stop growing. And I'm all about trying to face trials and go through the hard times to learn so that we can get better. And I'm curious, what do you think about this, man? I mean, from your seat, you're the guy that I think takes the best foot of this. But what do you think?
Really?
I think
All right.
so.
Okay. You asked, I'm going to answer.
I want an answer.
So I think for a lot of people, this does make sense. There is a lot of room in this space for all sorts of models. If you want to do MSP as a franchise, if you just want to grow your own, do your own, like the old brick and mortar, build outs, or if you want to do acquisitions, this as a service model, it's been there. It's been happening in different forms and, fashion. So listen, I myself have nothing to say bad about it. I just don't know if it's for me yet. I'll be honest, but I do see where, hey, if I do need to roll up something fast, having an option is a good thing.
Well,
is that a good safe answer?
It's exactly how I anticipated you would answer it.
Okay.
But I would say this, that, and it's twofold, right? I appreciate that because it's honest. I will say that there's a lot of folks that, we just got to think about what it is we're trying to accomplish, right? And to your point, I've always appreciated that you want to stay a one-man shop. Like, I love it, dude. I love it. There's a size of a company that I love. It's like right at 7 million. It's like a family right there, and it's beautiful to me. And I miss those moments of staying small. I pass them all the time though, and I do love this section, so I appreciate it. You will, you got your thing, and I love that. If you ever get to a point where you need somebody, we're here for you. But I will say that, you're like, I think I'm going to hit the gas on this. You call me, we'll be there for you, bro.
All right. I listen, I'm one of those people. So I'll share this. So I'm also doing this little health thing because I spent the first 48 years of my life, balls to the wall, playing hard. I'm 48 years old, playing basketball, and I have to guard the 24-year-old. And that's when I said, you know what? I think I'm good. And people always ask me, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, when I'm ready to walk away, I'll walk away. But a few years after that, I thought I would just stay the same. I would quit working out, no more gyms, no more running. And of course, what happens? The dad bod shows up.
Yeah.
And I got the belly, and I'm like, okay, I got to get rid of this. So I've been talking to some people, and one of the people, they're not my coach, but they want to be. And they kept asking me about my North Star. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to do that? And all of them have this goal of, I want to reach 1 million people. I want to reach 1 billion people. I want to change. And I'm like, why? Why not just be comfortable where you are? Change the people around you first.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just be able to walk down the street, talk to your neighbor, talk to your mom and pop shop down the street, support them. And that's where I'm at. I'm good with that. I don't need to have, 1,000 endpoints over in California.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can have 1,000 endpoints here if it turns out, but that's where I'm at. I'm good. So with everything in my life, I have figured out I'm where I want to be. I'm where I need to be.
Absolutely.
So that was one of the reasons why. So before I even say this, what did you think of my Shark Tank video?
It's very much in line with what I'm doing, man. And it takes me back to the beginning of something that my grandfather used to say. And, it's just, this is similarly how we've priced what we're doing now. And it was definitely a moment. I've been in front of sharks and it just gotten beat up by Barb Cochran. So I know what it's like, but it was good, man. And I find a lot of healthiness in that. A lot of times we're making decisions that aren't based on the community. And that's where we talk about what we're doing here is community over competition, right? Paying attention to the people that are here and helping each other do better. It's very synergetic with what we're doing, man. So I don't know if you picked that on purpose, but it was right down home street of what we're trying to do now. I understand there's farmers. That's why I'm an MSP just like everybody else. And that's why everyone's like, oh, we used to do it, Juan. I'm like, I'm going to go do it again. That's exactly what. But this time I'm going to help everybody. So I love that story, man. Did you intend to do that tonight?
No, I did not. When I woke up this morning, I had a whole different agenda. And, I go through my news stories. I go through this. I go through my social media. That just popped up on my feed. And I don't know why I clicked on it because normally I don't.
Yeah.
But something grabbed my attention and I saved it. When I got to the office, I watched it again and I'm like, oh my. And there's something about the fact that, I know that I have, obviously I didn't coin the term boutique MSP.
Sure.
But people have associated that with me. And
100%.
I know that people say to my face, hey man, happy for you. But I know there are some people out there saying, man, you're such an idiot. I know that they're nice to my face, but then they turn around and they'll be like, what the hell is he doing? And
I don't understand though.
And having that guy sit there and say, I don't need to make a ton of money. I'm helping farmers. And I'm like, we need more of that. And we need a shark. We need vendors. We need other people to respect that, appreciate that, and help promote that. I mean, we have non-for-profits that, they can't afford some of them. No, some of them can. Let me say it. Some can, but a lot of people, but not every business has to be, gutted to death. And if you're going to turn away business, somebody else needs to step in and protect that business. All businesses need to be protected. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, just like I said, it just struck a chord, man. I built a lot of things, and my grandfather was one that gave a lot, and we farmed in his little garden on the side of the house, and man, a lot of my lessons in life came from helping people and starting out small. I remember I started a landscaping company in those early years, and that was his way of teaching me business. And we charged like $5 a lawn back then, and I was stuffing flyers in my newspaper route, and he's like, son, yeah, you put it in the ad section, put it in the front when you're throwing papers. And it was just, taking care of the community was important. And yeah. I think sometimes we've lost some of that. And I want to say thank you for that, keeping this going, because this is still making an impact in the community, man. And we need those folks to keep that going. So for everybody that has a show that does stuff like this, like, my hat's off to you guys. This isn't easy, and it's a labor of love, so hey, thank you for that.
Well, people helped me a while back, so this is my way of helping in my own way as well. So thanks for that. Well, Juan, thank you, sir, for hopping on. Glad the timing worked out.
Absolutely.
We could do this.
I'm always willing to be of value where I can be. You know that, Marv. So anytime you need to shine the bat light, man, I'm here.
All right. Well, folks, there it is. Juan Fernandez. He's laid out a bold vision for us. The future of managed services. Obviously, it's not that every MSP is going to be able to build out their own enterprise great operation from scratch, but we can tap into shared operational backbones and do all that stuff. So the question I put forth to you is, if you had an elastic white labeled engine behind your business tomorrow, would you finally have the freedom to go build for your clients, your team, and for yourself? So think about that. And that is going to do it for this episode of the IT Business Podcast. Thank you to Juan Fernandez for hopping on. Thank you to all the other folks that help us do what we do. I will be back. Let's see. Yes, I will be back with a live show next week. We are done with the conference interviews. Next week is all about product reviews, ladies and gentlemen, something I've not done in quite some time. Some handheld testers. NetAlly is coming out with a brand new tool that I will get to. I already have it in hand, and we'll be talking about that. So be looking forward to that. And we'll see you next week, same time. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you soon. Holla.